Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment that you are already everything you hope to be: confident, grounded, and entirely whole. You may believe that there's something you must become or fix about yourself, but I want to suggest that true confidence isn't about addition. It's about subtraction. You already have what you're looking for, you've just forgotten. So let's take 3 simple steps to remember. To embrace your essence, start by realizing that you are more than any role you play, any label you wear, or any accomplishment you've achieved. Society constantly urges us to define ourselves through these identities and achievements, whispering that our worth lies somewhere outside of us in our titles, appearances, or how we are perceived by others. But in truth, these things are surface level, like clothing that can be put on and taken off, and they barely scratch the surface of who you truly are. When you remove all these outer layers, what remains? The part of you that is timeless, beyond changing, and infinitely valuable. This essence is the core of your being, and embracing it is the foundation of real, unwavering confidence. To start, take a moment to imagine stripping away the various aspects of your public persona. Imagine yourself without your job title, without your relationships, without any labels that might normally define you. Now consider this: who are you in that space of silence, in that empty canvas, when there is no one to impress or disappoint? Many of us may find that this question leaves us feeling uneasy. It's a simple question, but the answer is often elusive because we have been taught to look outside ourselves for our worth. We're taught to measure ourselves by external standards and to cling to things that define us in a way society deems acceptable. Yet that essence, our purest form, is always present, quietly waiting for us to turn our gaze inward. The journey inward is one of discovery, often accompanied by resistance. We may fear that if we strip away everything we think we are, we'll be left with emptiness, with nothing to hold on to. But what you find as you move beyond these surface-level identities is far from empty. In fact, it's rich, vast, and boundless. This is where you find the beauty of simply being. In this space, you no longer feel the urge to constantly measure up or fit in. Instead, you realize that you are complete as you are. When you allow yourself to rest in that space of pure being, the need for external validation begins to dissolve. Confidence flows naturally because it is no longer something you need to chase or prove. It becomes a part of you, inseparable from who you are. Part of this journey to embracing your essence is learning to accept all aspects of yourself without judgment. We often carry within us voices from the past, words that others have spoken about us, criticisms we have internalized, or beliefs we've absorbed from family, culture, and society. These voices can become so embedded that we mistake them for our own. But to truly know yourself, you must let go of these outside influences and listen to the quieter, truer voice within. You must come to terms with your imperfections and weaknesses, not as flaws to be hidden or fixed, but as parts of the beautiful tapestry that makes up who you are. In a way, embracing your essence means making peace with all of yourself, the parts you are proud of, and the parts you are hesitant to accept. We often think that confidence comes from projecting strength, hiding our vulnerabilities, and showing only our polished, perfected selves to the world. But there is a unique power in allowing yourself to be seen exactly as you are. When you embrace your essence, you no longer feel the need to curate an image, because you know your worth doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's opinion or your last success. Think of nature for a moment. A tree does not hide its branches that twist and turn in irregular patterns, nor does it try to make its leaves fall more gracefully in autumn. It simply is. In that being, it finds its own beauty, a quiet confidence that comes from existing without apology or pretense. You, too, can learn to stand firm in your essence by trusting that your worth is inherent. Embracing your essence also means recognizing that you are enough right now as you are, without needing to change or improve yourself for anyone. This doesn't mean you stop growing or evolving. Growth is a natural part of life, and we all learn and change over time. But when you realize that your worth is constant and doesn't depend on who you become in the future, You give yourself the freedom to be fully present. Rather than always seeking to be better, you can begin to appreciate the richness of who you are at this very moment. This is a profound shift that nurtures a deep sense of contentment and confidence, because you're no longer striving to be worthy. You already know that you are. Another vital part of this process is understanding that your essence is interconnected with everything around you. Our society often places a heavy emphasis on individuality, on standing out, on being unique. But at the level of essence, we are not separate from the world. We are deeply connected to each other and to all of life. When you embrace this truth, you begin to see that everyone shares the same core humanity, the same spirit that animates us all. You realize that confidence isn't about being better than others, it's about knowing your place in the vast tapestry of existence. There's a certain liberation that comes from realizing that you don't have to compete, because your essence is part of something larger, something universal and timeless. So as you walk through life, remember that embracing your essence is not about attaining something new or becoming someone different. It's about peeling back the layers, letting go of pretense, and reconnecting with the part of you that has always been there. This essence doesn't need to be amplified or disguised. It just needs to be recognized, acknowledged, and allowed to shine. When you live from this place of inner fullness, true confidence emerges naturally. It is not loud or aggressive, it is quiet, rooted, and unwavering. You are a part of the flow of life itself, grounded in your worth, and guided by a confidence that doesn't depend on what anyone else thinks or on any achievements you may attain. This is the power of knowing yourself, of being truly comfortable in your own skin, of embracing your essence with open arms. To act without attachment is to let go of the idea that the outcomes of your actions define your value or worth. In our daily lives, so much of what we do is attached to expectations, opinions, and results. We may make decisions or pursue dreams not because they bring us joy, but because we hope they will bring us approval, validation, or a sense of security. But this mindset keeps us constantly looking outward, waiting for the world to affirm our worth, and it subtly steals our freedom and authenticity. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to act from a place of pure joy or purpose, to do something simply because it resonates with who you are, not because you're hoping for a particular outcome. This kind of action, untethered from the weight of expectation, is one of the most freeing ways to live. When we act without attachment, we are fully present in the moment, engaged in the process itself. We aren't burdened by worries about what others might think or how things might turn out. Instead, we're able to immerse ourselves fully in whatever we're doing, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment simply from engaging with life. One way to begin practicing this is to examine your motivations. Often we approach our goals with a mindset fixated on rewards, outcomes, or recognition. We may go through life pursuing promotions, accumulating wealth, or chasing titles, not because these things genuinely fulfill us, but because we believe they're necessary to feel valued or respected. But consider that any result is ultimately beyond our control. We can plan, prepare, and give our best effort, but we cannot control what happens next. When we understand this, we realize that attachment to outcomes is a recipe for disappointment, anxiety, and frustration. By letting go of attachment, we free ourselves from this endless cycle of hope and fear, and instead we become deeply connected to the experience of being present. Acting without attachment does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. Quite the opposite, it's about giving yourself fully to each moment, each interaction, and each endeavor. When we're not attached to an outcome, we can engage wholeheartedly without hesitation. We can take risks, try new things, and express ourselves freely, because we're not afraid of failing or being judged. In this state, we're willing to face challenges, not because we're guaranteed success, but because we find joy in the journey itself. This way of living allows us to be resilient because we're no longer shattered by a single setback or rejection. We recognize that our worth doesn't hinge on a specific result, and this knowledge gives us a profound inner strength. A practical example might be in relationships. Often when we form attachments in relationships, we start to measure our value based on how the other person responds to us. If they like us, we feel validated. If they criticize or leave us, we feel diminished. But relationships, like all aspects of life, are fluid and ever-changing. If we can love without attachment, we allow the other person the freedom to be themselves, and we give ourselves the same freedom. We don't cling to their validation to feel whole. Instead, we connect from a place of abundance, knowing that our own worth isn't dependent on any one person's approval. In this way, we can love deeply, authentically, and openly, without the fear of loss or rejection clouding our actions. Another essential part of acting without attachment is letting go of perfectionism. Perfectionism often stems from a desire for control over how others see us, how things turn out, or how our work is received. But life is inherently imperfect, and to act without attachment means accepting this reality. It's allowing yourself to create, to express, to do your best, knowing that it won't be flawless and being okay with that. This approach lets us be more creative, more daring, and more at ease, because we are no longer striving for some imagined ideal that may never be reached. Instead, we enjoy the process of learning, of making mistakes, and of growing along the way. We realize that each step, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is valuable in itself. There's a beautiful paradox in acting without attachment. It's often when we let go of the need for a particular outcome that things begin to flow more easily. When we aren't fixated on results, we allow space for spontaneity, for unexpected opportunities, and for genuine connection. We are more adaptable, open to whatever comes, and less likely to be thrown off balance when things don't go as planned. This doesn't mean that we don't have goals or aspirations, but it does mean that we hold them lightly, recognizing that the true richness of life comes from engaging deeply in each moment, not from reaching some distant destination. Acting without attachment also brings a profound sense of peace. Attachment by its nature creates tension and anxiety because it's rooted in wanting things to be a certain way. When we loosen our grip on outcomes, we begin to feel a lightness and freedom that comes from surrendering our need to control everything. We start to trust that life has its own rhythm and that we are part of that flow. This trust allows us to meet each experience with openness and curiosity, rather than fear or resistance. We start to see that, no matter what happens, we are resilient, capable of handling whatever life brings. Imagine a musician playing an instrument. If they are too focused on hitting every note perfectly, they become tense, and the music loses its natural rhythm. But when they lose themselves in the music, playing for the sheer joy of it, they connect with a deeper flow. Their performance is not about impressing the audience or achieving a flawless rendition. It's about expressing something real, something alive in the moment. In the same way, when we act without attachment, we stop living for an audience or trying to orchestrate a specific outcome. We live from a place of authenticity, expressing ourselves naturally and fully, without fear of how others might judge us. To act without attachment is to embrace life in its fullness, allowing each experience to unfold as it will. When we understand that the beauty of life lies in its unpredictability, we become more willing to take risks, to let go, and to trust the process. We discover that true confidence doesn't come from external validation or from reaching a specific goal. It comes from knowing that we are whole and complete, regardless of any outcome. This is the power of acting without attachment. It frees us to live boldly, to love deeply, and to experience each moment as it is, without needing it to be anything other than what it is. To surrender to the flow of life means to accept that life unfolds in its own time, often in ways we can't predict or control. So much of our suffering and anxiety arises from our attempts to resist the natural ebb and flow of experience. We tend to cling to things we want to keep and push away what we don't like, thinking that if we manage to shape everything just right, we'll find lasting happiness and security. But life, by its very nature, is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same, and no amount of effort can guarantee a particular outcome. Surrendering to the flow Then is about releasing our need to control every detail, and instead learning to embrace each moment as it comes, allowing ourselves to fully experience whatever arises. When we surrender to life's flow, we stop resisting what is. This doesn't mean giving up on dreams or becoming passive. Instead, it means moving in harmony with life, accepting that some things are beyond our influence. In a river, for instance, you can fight the current, or you can let it carry you forward. When you resist, you become exhausted, using up all your energy trying to force things to go your way. But when you surrender to the current, you are still moving, still progressing, yet with a sense of ease and flow. Surrendering means letting go of the need to know exactly how things will turn out and trusting that. Regardless of the outcome, you are resilient enough to face whatever comes. Trusting the flow of life involves faith, not necessarily in a religious sense, but in a deep, quiet trust that there is a rhythm to life beyond our understanding, that things have a way of unfolding naturally if we allow them to. Just as we don't have to command a seed to grow or force the sun to rise, there are many things in our lives that will happen in their own time, in their own way. Often, when we try to control outcomes or cling to specific expectations, we close ourselves off from possibilities that may be even better than what we originally imagined. But when we surrender, we open ourselves to whatever life may bring, even if it's different from what we had planned. Surrendering to life also means embracing the unknown. As humans, we are creatures of habit, often seeking security in routines and predictable patterns. But true growth and transformation often happen when we step into the unknown, where we feel uncertain or even vulnerable. When we allow ourselves to flow with life, we give up the illusion that we need to know what's coming next. Instead, we find a certain freedom in not knowing. This openness creates room for spontaneity, creativity, and surprise. By letting go of rigid expectations, we become more receptive to the gifts and lessons each moment has to offer, and we begin to see life's twists and turns as part of a larger journey. It's important to remember that surrendering is not a one-time decision, but a practice. Life will present challenges, disappointments, and losses, and it's natural to feel the urge to control, to resist, or to struggle against what is happening. But in these moments, surrendering means accepting your experience fully. If you're feeling sadness, fear, or frustration, let yourself feel it. Don't fight against it or try to numb it away. Often when we allow our emotions to flow freely without judgment or resistance, they pass more quickly, and we emerge with a greater understanding of ourselves. Surrendering is about softening into whatever the present moment holds, knowing that each emotion and experience is temporary, part of the ebb and flow of life. To surrender to life's flow is also to acknowledge that not everything requires a solution. Some situations may never resolve in the way we hope, and some questions may remain unanswered. Often we expend so much energy trying to fix things or make them fit a particular image of how things should be that we overlook the value of simply being. In surrender, we begin to see that it's okay to live with mystery, with questions that may not have immediate answers. We start to understand that some experiences may be there to teach us patience, resilience, or acceptance. By letting go of the need to solve every issue, we become more comfortable with uncertainty and learn to find peace, even in the midst of unfulfilled desires. Another aspect of surrendering to life is releasing attachment to outcomes. We often think that if we don't control every detail, we won't achieve what we want. But ironically, surrendering can open doors that force never could. When we surrender, we are not giving up on our dreams. Rather, we're making space for them to unfold naturally, perhaps in ways we hadn't envisioned. Sometimes the very act of letting go of an intense desire for something can lead to its fulfillment, or it might reveal a different path that brings even greater fulfillment. In the space of surrender, we are less bound by expectations and more open to seeing opportunities and answers we may have otherwise overlooked. Surrendering to life's flow allows us to connect with a sense of inner calm and resilience. Life may not always go the way we want, but by embracing what is, we cultivate an inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances. This peace comes from knowing that no matter what happens, we have the strength to face it. Rather than constantly bracing ourselves for what might go wrong, we start to trust in our ability to navigate challenges and to appreciate the present moment, even when it's not perfect. This doesn't mean that life will be without hardship, but it does mean that our response to those hardships becomes one of grace, allowing us to move through life with a grounded sense of peace.